The small mechanical device on my wrist costs more than that Lamborghini Aventador you've been dreaming about. Seems impossible, right? Well, prepare to have your mind absolutely blown. I'm about to take you into a world where timepieces aren't just accessories. They're investments that outvalue some of the most exotic supercars on the planet. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to reveal watches so exclusive that even billionaires struggle to get their hands on them. We'll uncover the secret techniques that make these timepieces worth millions, and I'll show you the one watch that costs more than an entire collection of Ferraris. But first, let me ask you, what makes something truly valuable? Is it rarity, craftsmanship, heritage, or simply what someone is willing to pay for it? By the end of this video, your perception of luxury might be completely transformed. The luxury paradigm shift. When most people think ultimate luxury purchase, their minds immediately race to exotic cars, Bugattis, Koenigsegg's, limited edition Ferraris. These mechanical masterpieces represent the pinnacle of engineering, design, and status. But there's a parallel universe of luxury that fits on your wrist. In Switzerland's hidden valleys, artisans spend thousands of hours hunched over workbenches, manipulating components so small that they're barely visible to the naked eye. Some of these master watchmakers train for decades to perfect their craft, passing down techniques that haven't changed in centuries. What makes these watches special isn't just their price tag, says renowned collector Thomas Prestige. It's the culmination of hundreds of years of mechanical innovation, packaged into something you can wear every day. But here's where things get truly mind-boggling. While a Bugatti Chiron will set you back around $3 million, some of the watches I'm about to show you cost nearly twice that amount. And unlike cars, which depreciate the moment you drive them off the lot, these timepieces often become more valuable over time. So what exactly are these mechanical wonders that outprice supercars? Well, that's what we're about to discover. But I should warn you, once you see number 3 on this list, your definition of expensive might need a serious update. The entry level, $1 million timepieces. Let's start with what collectors ironically call the entry-level ultra-luxury watch, the Richard Mille RM27-04 Tourbillon Rafael Nadal. Priced at a cool $1.05 million, this mechanical marvel weighs just 30 grams, lighter than most plastic watches, yet contains a movement suspended by a complex web of 0.35 millimeter steel cable, similar to a tennis racket's strings. Why so expensive? This watch can withstand forces of up to 12,000 Gs. For context, fighter pilots usually experience around 9 Gs during extreme maneuvers, and most watches break at far less. For the price of this single timepiece, you could drive away in an Aston Martin DBX with enough cash left over for a Porsche 911, explains luxury analyst Sophia Chen. Yet collectors willingly pay this premium for something that essentially tells the same time as your smartphone. But here's what most people don't realize about watches at this level. They're not really about telling time at all. These pieces are wearable art, investment vehicles, and status symbols all rolled into one, continues Chen. When you purchase a watch like this, you're not just buying a product. You're buying membership into an extremely exclusive club. But if you think $1 million for a watch is excessive, you might want to hold on to your seat, because we're just getting started. What if I told you there's a watch that requires a background check and personal interview with the CEO before you're allowed to purchase it? And what if this watch costs more than a fleet of Lamborghinis? We'll explore that next. But first, I need to tell you about something even more surprising about these timepieces. The hidden world of complications. In the world of haute horlogerie, that's fancy talk for high-end watchmaking, value is often determined by something called complications. A complication is any feature beyond simple timekeeping. The more complications, the more difficult the watch is to create, and typically the more expensive it becomes. Calendar functions that automatically adjust for leap years, that's a complication. Moon phase indicators that are accurate to 1 day every 122 years, complication. Minute repeaters that chime the time with tiny hammers and gongs, you guessed it, extremely complex complications that can take months to perfect. Each minute repeater requires over 300 hours just to assemble and tune, explains master watchmaker Jean-Claude Beaver. We're talking about microscopic components that must function flawlessly for decades. It's like building a mechanical symphony orchestra that fits on your wrist. But here's where things get truly absurd. Some watches contain so many complications that watchmakers refer to them as grand complications. These mechanical marvels can track astronomical events, function as perpetual calendars, and even replicate the movement of celestial bodies, all without batteries or computer assistance. And that brings us to our next watch, one that contains a staggering 36 complications and costs more than most people's retirement savings. But before I reveal it, here's something even fewer people know. Many of these ultra-luxury watches are never actually worn. They remain in climate-controlled safes, only to be taken out occasionally for admiration or to show special guests. Now let's continue our journey into horological insanity with a timepiece that makes even seasoned collectors gasp. The middle tier, multi-million marvels. The Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime Reference, 6300A-010, sold at auction for $31 million in 2019, making it the most expensive watch ever sold at the time. With its salmon-colored dial and reversible case featuring a second black dial, this watch contains 20 different complications and over 1,366 individual components. Each one takes more than 100,000 hours to produce. That's the equivalent of one person working non-stop for over 11 years. For the price of this single watch, you could purchase 15 Ferrari SF90 Stradales, Ferrari's hybrid supercar, and still have money left over for a mansion to store them in, notes luxury market expert Dr. Raymond Wong. But what drives someone to spend supercar fleet money on a timepiece? These aren't impulse purchases, explains our anonymous collector, who owns 3 watches worth over $1 million each. They're calculated acquisitions of extremely limited mechanical art. When Patek only makes 7 of something, and there are thousands of billionaires in the world who might want one, the economics become clear. Now, I promised to tell you about a watch that requires a personal interview before purchase, and here it is. The FP Journe Astronomique Souveraine contains 18 complications, including a sidereal time display that tracks the Earth's position relative to the stars. With only 4 made per year and a price tag of approximately $900,000, getting on the waiting list requires more than just money. It requires a personal relationship with the brand. Journe wants to know his watches are going to true appreciators, explains watch journalist Suzanne Royce. He's been known to refuse sales to people he feels are buying solely for investment or status. But even these watches pale in comparison to what comes next. In a moment, I'll show you a timepiece so valuable and so rare that it travels with its own security team. This watch costs more than the combined value of the 5 most expensive production supercars on the market today. But before we get there, let's talk about what makes these mechanical masterpieces so costly in the first place. The craftsmanship conundrum. The world's most expensive watches aren't made on assembly lines. Each component is crafted by hand, often using techniques that haven't changed in centuries. This single bridge takes 3 days to polish to perfection, explains master watchmaker Philippe Dufour. We use traditional wooden pegs and diamond paste to achieve a mirror finish that's invisible to the naked eye. Most people will never see this level of finishing, but knowing it's there is part of what makes these timepieces special. While a supercar engine might contain a few hundred parts, a high-complication watch movement can contain over 1,000 components, many of them smaller than a grain of rice. The hairspring, the heart of a mechanical watch, is thinner than a human hair, continues Dufour. It must be perfectly shaped and balanced to ensure accurate timekeeping. A single speck of dust can throw everything off. But here's what most people don't understand about luxury watches. The most expensive ones often don't keep time as accurately as a $20 quartz watch from your local department store. That's right, these million-dollar mechanical marvels might lose or gain several seconds per day, while a basic quartz watch might only be off by a few seconds per month. It's not about perfect timekeeping, explains collector Vincent Chen. It's about celebrating the pinnacle of mechanical ingenuity. It's like comparing a handwritten letter to an email. The email is more efficient, but the letter contains human soul. Now, are you ready to see the watch that makes even billionaires do a double take? The Apex. Watches that defy comprehension. The Graph Diamond's hallucination doesn't look like a traditional watch. In fact, it's hard to tell it's a watch at all. This kaleidoscopic bracelet contains over 110 carats of extremely rare colored diamonds arranged in a platinum setting. The tiny watch dial almost seems like an afterthought. The price? A mind-blowing $55 million. For the cost of this single timepiece, you could purchase a Bugatti Chiron, a Pagani Huayra, a Koenigsegg Jesko, a Lamborghini Sian, an Aston Martin Valkyrie, and a Ferrari LaFerrari, with enough money left over to build a custom garage to house them all, explains automotive journalist Marco Fratelli. Watches at this level aren't just luxury items, they're security concerns, notes high-value asset security consultant Eleanor Barnes. They travel with armed guards, require specialized insurance policies, and are often stored in facilities with security that rivals government buildings. But perhaps the most exclusive timepiece isn't even available for purchase at any price. The Breguet No. 160, also known as the Marie Antoinette, was commissioned for the French Queen in 1783 and wasn't completed until 34 years after her execution. It contains every watchmaking complication known at the time and took 44 years to complete. Its value? Experts estimate between $30 to $40 million, but we'll never know for sure because it's not for sale. It belongs to a museum. Time is the ultimate luxury. We've journeyed through a world where tiny mechanical marvels command prices that make supercars seem like budget options. But beyond the staggering numbers and technical specifications lies a deeper truth. In a world where time itself is our most precious and limited resource, perhaps there's something poetically appropriate about the ultimate luxury being an instrument that measures it. This watch belonged to my grandfather, I explain, showing a relatively simple vintage timepiece. It's not worth millions, probably just a few $1,000s in today's market. But to me, it's priceless because of the history it carries. And that's the final secret about luxury watches that most people don't understand. The most valuable timepieces aren't always the ones with the highest price tags. They're the ones that tell a story, that connect us to our past, and remind us to make every second count. Whether you're wearing a $10 digital watch or a $1 million mechanical masterpiece, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. The true luxury isn't how we measure time, it's how we spend it. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the world of ultra-luxury timepieces, be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. In my next video, I'll be taking you inside the secret vaults where the world's most valuable watch collections are stored, and you won't believe the security measures in place to protect them. Until then, remember, life's too short for boring watches or boring videos.